James O'Keefe is being investigated by Democrat DA. Interesting, isn't it? Let's play the clip.
The founder of Project Veritas, a conservative nonprofit known for its hidden camera stings, is under investigation by a suburban New York prosecutor's office in the latest fallout after his ouster from the group over allegations that he mistreated workers. They're not going to say exactly what
We're
it's
doing
all
it
about
live.
or what he's being investigated for. And maybe this goes nowhere.
Live reaction.
But I'm not going to ignore this because we don't want to be frogs in a pot boiling.
Exactly.
James O'Keefe had a number of investigations that aided Donald Trump. There were videos of, there was one video we had where a woman was filling out ballots for another woman. Remember that one? There was one where a guy was in his car saying, look at all these ballots that I've collected. I get paid for these. Now, this is not exactly what I meant. What I thought was likely to happen first, and they haven't charged James O'Keefe or anything like that. My prediction is not necessarily Tucker, but somebody who is in communication with the Trump legal team, who is then going on TV and going on the internet and advocating for Trump's election claims and assisting and rallying people, or some of these people who were saying things like encouraging people to go out to January 6th and literally be violent. Those are the people I think they go after first.
Who was doing that?
But
encouraging them to be violent.
This is still in the periphery of what I thought might happen. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas. You know, look, this is interesting. Fox shutters Tucker Carlson. They shut him down. So he goes and does his own thing. They're furious about it. They try to sideline James O'Keefe. He resists. He then launches his own organization. They cannot stop him. The only thing they can do is make some bogus charges against him and stop him through legal force. I mean, the reality is they're so desperate, they're losing. That's why they're trying these tactics. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, I see them going after James O'Keefe because of this.
I'm going to introduce just a slight note of skepticism on this, which is it is possible that James O'Keefe violated, New York state labor laws, right?
Well, sure, a lot of things are possible, but I really don't believe that.
Sure. Okay, but my point is that precisely because they've become so politicized, these kinds of investigations, that no one can, like even if he did it, you're like, oh, it must be because of his speech.
They're suspect.
And that's the problem, because I care about labor rights and I want labor laws upheld. But in a case like this, and given the backdrop of how the sort of official left has behaved, you can't help but think this is a kind of political persecution, even if it may be a legitimate case. And I know you're saying it probably isn't, but I'm just saying it could be.
Anybody, if you offered someone the opportunity to place a bet, is this a political prosecution or legitimate? Anybody willing to take the legitimate bet, they're welcome to play at my poker games.
I mean, but I think that you're on something with your broader point. And I've mentioned this before. The fact that there's so many people now that don't trust the government. And look, I've been a libertarian kind of dude for at least like almost 15 years or so. And so I'm real quick to be like, government, no, and I want to cut the government.
I've been like libertarian for like 10 years now. A while. Huh. Time sneaks up on you.
Blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to the average, what you'd call normie, I really think COVID and the vaccine has really, really opened up a massive new group of people that just don't trust the government. They just don't believe what they're telling, what the government says and stuff. And I'm not sure what that means for the country. Like, low trust societies are violent societies. Low trust societies are societies that have weaker economies. There's more just more friction. You need more lawyers in low trust societies. You need more courts. Everything is harder in a low trust society. And the more that we do things that separate people from each other and make people look at class differences and race differences and stop focusing on the fact that we have liberal principles that unify us as a country. We don't need to worry about your skin color. We don't need to worry about your religion. All you have to do is understand liberal principles and accept the fact that people should be allowed to decide how their own lives should be structured. And it's easy for us to get along, but if we can't allow people to live their lives the way that they see fit, I don't know how you fix the problem of a low trust society.
Well, but so I mean, to talk about a little bit about the book, precisely there are possibilities for private coercion in the marketplace, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a kind of free market theory that imagines that we're still in the late 18th century and you just have, independent farmers and mechanics and artisans who can trade at arm's length.
So kind of I get what he's saying, but it's kind of nonsense. The reason why private companies can go and do and affect culture and everything so well is the opposite, in my opinion. The government's gotten so big that it's so easy to use your money to go and affect government. Because it's so big. Back in the 1800s and stuff, it's like, what do you do? Back then, the government was so small. If you were a huge corporation, like $1 billion company, back then money, what are you gonna? The government's not gonna help you. There's no government. But now the government's so huge, you go and start lobbying and stuff. Bam, you can get a lot of stuff done from a lot of different people. But if the government wasn't so big and didn't have that power, then the private industry wouldn't be able to yield that power.
That is not what the American kind of economy looks like. Most industries are super concentrated. There's 2 or 3 predominant sellers, and everyone else, especially if you're a worker, you're at the mercy of,
because the government keeps you
the
down with
wage
regulations.
Is no longer,
it's hard to compete.
The perfect crystallization of supply and demand. It's an index of relative.
It's like that thing that what happens with McDonald's and Starbucks. They're all for a nationwide minimum wage, $15 an hour, but why don't they pay them $15 an hour everywhere now? Oh no, it's only if everyone else has to. That's why they're for it, because they can afford it no matter what, right? But they'll just raise their prices. They're McDonald's, but a small mom and pop, they'll put a lot of restaurants out of business, less competition. That's why all these industries are consolidated now. It's so hard to get into all these industries. There's so many regulations. There's all these application fees. It's insanity. But if we didn't have that, if you see industries like websites, there's so many websites that compete with each other for different stuff because there's not a bunch of regulations on the internet like there is everywhere else. So it's easier to, like, Amazon's big, but they are very, very, very far from 100% market share. Yeah, they're big because they do good work, but they're not, just eating up everything and making it. The government hasn't made it impossible to create an e-retailer. So, yeah, there can be competition. But if you go look at other industries where there's a ton of regulation, yeah, it's easy for them to consolidate because it's so hard to create a company that can compete.
Bargaining power. And so those are issues that government can help with.
Get rid of it.
I believe should. So, for example, the fact that in this country, half of fast food workers have to rely on public welfare to make ends meet, that is not good. We have what's called a low-wage, high-welfare society. Why is that bad? By the way, it's not when we call it high welfare. It's not like the welfare benefits are actually especially generous. In some ways, they're quite miserly. But it just means that as a share of income for kind of the lower third of the country, the share of the income they need to make ends meet, welfare makes up a big part of that. And wages are not sufficient. So what we're doing is, as taxpayers, we're subsidizing.
This guy. So no, I don't agree with this either. If there wasn't as much taxes to pay for welfare, right, then their wages would be higher. They could demand higher wages. But when all the money's for your taxes all your money's going to taxes, that's why they need welfare.
Low wages,
communism,
and at the same time, workers in that position are not only subject to the whims of the boss, but they're also subject to the whims of the welfare administrator, who gets more and more powerful because he controls the fate of more and more people.
That's true.
Right. So those are problems where we need to work together democratically to try to solve. And if people are constantly thinking that government is out to get them to try to impose irrational mask mandates and so forth,
that's what
it
government
becomes
does
harder.
No matter
and
what.
So this is I'm really just kind of dittoing your point.
Sure.
Because there are problems.
Doesn't
that need
sound
kind of
like it.
collective action.
Yeah, and if you don't believe in the government, if you have a society that just generally doesn't believe
Terrible.
that the other people that they're trying to work with are actually, looking to actually solve problems as opposed to just acquire or amass power for themselves or their constituents, I mean, people complain about where the country's heading and stuff. Well, the best way to make sure that the country is heading in a good direction is to be able to trust that you can enter into contract and you can, your economy is going to work well.
I agree
You
with
can
Phil,
trust
but that other guy.
Your neighbors aren't going to steal your stuff, and the government's not going to take your property.
And where we're going with these prosecutions,
James O'Keefe.
it hits the nail on the head of the hammer, nail on the head with the hammer, exactly what the Founding Fathers talked about when they talked about being innocent until proven guilty. If a society
keeping
tells you that no matter
Republic-
how
as you
good of a
keep
person
it
you
or
are, they
whatever.
will lock you up and punish you, then there is no incentive to be good. So what we see with things like this is lawlessness and narco-tyranny. People are looting these stores, mass raids, and they get away with it. You defend yourself, you go to prison. That guy in New York who was being attacked and then stabbed the guy and went to Rikers. And it was only because of public outcry that he
That's
got out. How many
outrageous.
people do you think right now in this country, in these cities, have suffered a similar fate and we just don't know about it? It's an
Yeah.
inversion.
There's probably a
And
lot.
the reason is it's really simple. It is easier for the police to arrest James O'Keefe than it is for them to arrest one random guy looting a Nike store. Why?
Why?
The guy looting the Nike store could have a knife, a gun, and he'll fight. James O'Keefe will open the door, turn around, put his hands behind his back, and let you arrest him. So what are they going to keep doing? Law enforcement will go after low-hanging fruit to hammer everything looks like a nail. And if there is some politicized charge against any of these Republicans or media personalities, people like James O'Keefe, then they'll do it. And the cops are going to be like, well, this one's easy. And that's it. And then what happens? So Tucker,
Super
he's putting up his
lawlessness.
video with Trump soon. He asks Trump if he thinks we're headed towards the Civil War. I'm really interested to see what Trump says. I imagine Trump's going to say no. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe he says yes, considering what's going on.
He says he doesn't
But you
know.
got to understand.
This
that
came up
is-
before. Trump's response to it was he doesn't know, he hopes not, basically, but there's just so much hate and division that who knows?
If this narco-tyranny persists, eventually the view is DOJ is illegitimate.
Yeah.
And why would anyone think otherwise even right now? Certainly Democrats would agree with it, but that's not what matters. What matters is, do we as a nation agree that our Department of Justice is a legitimate force for justice, or do we believe it is simply a gang run by partisans
Yep.
to torture and oppress their political enemies? I'm pretty sure every Trump supporter believes the latter. And if that's the case, there
Yeah.
comes a time when you're, say, a fat 70-year-old dude in Provo, Utah, and they show up at your house with a battering ram, and then they kill you.
Well, don't throw on people
I mean,
in his
there
case,
was
right?
just like yesterday or the day before was the anniversary of Ruby Ridge.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think yesterday
But Ruby Ridge is still a little bit different.
it is.
Well, yeah, they
It's a
shot the woman.
firearms charge, and then they tried using it as a justification for a raid. You look at that, and you look at Waco, and that was, they found a bunch of guns or whatever, and then there's controversy over. Those may have been something, there's more to those stories we don't know about, right? It's so simple. Today, we're dealing with something overt and desperate. The Democrats have lost everything. They're losing music. They're losing movies. They're losing culture in general. And in their panic and desperation, they're going for brute force. And that will just shatter what is left of confidence in their legitimacy. Then what happens? I honestly don't know. What happens when we get to the point where they kill that guy in Provo, Utah? There's that woman, that school teacher in Chicago. She was threatening Trump and Barron, and they show up and just arrest her peacefully. To be fair, some frail little woman who's not known to be armed is a big difference. Is very different from a guy posting photos of himself with rifles and
At
things
least
like
the guy that couldn't walk has guns. We
Right.
don't know that she had it.
So, but what
the
happens when that
means.
Provo, Utah thing kind of expands? What happens when you get 7 guys who don't plot anything ridiculous, aren't talking about going to the governor's mansion or anything like that, but they just say, none of us believe that the DOJ is legitimate. What happens then when the FBI shows up and they've got a car blocking the highway and they say, you turn right around. You got nothing to say here. We got nothing to say to you. Turn around. What happens when people stop respecting the badges of these law enforcement because they're doing things like going
lot of
after
people
Trump
already
and
have.
Trump's lawyers.
Well, to be fair, I mean, you see
no, I've-
the
they
increase
don't
in
like them.
crime in cities. That's because the people that are living
Yeah,
in
they
the
don't
cities
respect
don't
the
respect
badge.
the police.
Yep.
You know,
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean,
It's
you'll
already
see
happened, Tim.
more of this. You'll see more unrest, and then, you know, will citizens take it into their own hands? Because you're seeing more and more where people are sick and tired of it. I don't know that they're gonna. You know, there's that we just saw the dude, I think, in Atlanta, where the DA is not going to charge him for smoking the guy that was robbing someone.
Oh, the
dude-
gas station.
Yeah, the guy that just
No, that was Michigan.
was Michigan.
The gas station with the 6-pack, and he shoots the
Yeah,
guy.
one
That was
hand and
Michigan.
he doesn't put the beer down. He just pops the dude.
Yep.
Wow.
And see, here's the issue. We went too far in one direction. Maybe. I do think that in many ways we are winning, and I think we're on track to win. I don't know if that's a guarantee. I don't know what's going on. But when you see there's a story out of Michigan where a guy with a box cart, he's threatening the store, the clerk, some dude who's got a concealed carry just shoots him. And they said, we're not going to prosecute him. He's allowed to do it. He's
He was
self-defense.
Yeah.
also the good guy.
Right.
Yeah, yep.
He was he had previously worked as a security
Good
guard.
DA.
And wow, one
In
hand
that area.
holding a 6-pack, and he
But
stopped
I
this-
think his DAs control so much. George Soros knows this. I think I read a third of the population has a DA that was funded by George Soros here in Austin. That's how it is. The DA here is just super trash. But yeah, that's how it goes. And the DA, I never realized this until like the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, and then the stuff with Austin and stuff. The one guy, the BLM protester, went up to his car. They were surrounding him in 2020. And the guy was an army sergeant, so this guy points an AK into the back of his window, and he pulls out a gun and shoots him. He's in prison right now. I think Greg Abbott, last time I looked, was working on pardoning him. But yeah, that's who the DA goes after. It's like, how? That's obviously self-defense, and he's going to appeal no matter what and win. It's in Texas. You go to a state court, he'll win self-defense. But that's crazy. He's been in jail for like years for defending himself from a guy who pointed a gun at him. Yeah, the DA is so important. Everyone has to start realizing that. I didn't realize it until like the last year or two, that it's like the DA is one of the most important local positions, you know, because they have way more power than you'd realize, because they choose who gets prosecuted and who doesn't.
this evil criminal. That's the good news is, if we as a society say, we will not prosecute you for defending other people, maybe it's not that these individuals don't fear the police anymore, it's they fear everyone else.
Absolutely. It is 100% a deterrent. If people
Yeah.
are armed, if you live in a place where people are armed and you might get shot,
Yeah.
that is that deters
Yeah.
people.
But what did the police forces weren't even around, just really started popping up like 100 years right after the Revolutionary War, maybe even longer. There was no police. Everyone just had a gun. So that was the deterrent. You go and start shooting people, you're going to get shot. A lot of people say that about not having government. If the government fell, it's just going to be chaos. It's going to be a power vacuum and stuff. And that happens in a lot of countries, but the United States has so many guns. I don't think that'll happen. The guys that try to go get power, they're gonna get taken out, and then it goes away. Then the people that are calm and don't want to go and try to get power, they're gonna be the ones left.
From trying to commit crimes.
But we live in a super armed society.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it also a high crime?
Because
society?
it's
What?
extremely hard to carry guns in some
This
places.
guy,
Most places probably.
yeah,
Hmm?
I mean,
big
it's-
cities, yeah. What is he talking
in West
about?
Virginia, they have concealed carry.
Here in Austin, there's Texas is constitutional carry and everything, but then the businesses in Austin, they'll say no, you can't bring a gun in here. So it's like, what are you talking about? So people just don't carry guns.
I'm sorry.
Oh, and then like I was just saying, the DA is awful here. So if someone aims a gun at you and they're part of both of these guys were white, by the way. They're in a BLM protest. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You shoot them in self-defense, you're going to get prosecuted. This guy, who do they have on? Who is this guy?
constitutional
It's not
carry.
very smart.
So,
no offense to him. or
so long
anything,
as you have
but-
an ID for the state, you can walk into a gun store. You buy a gun, you got to fill out the federal background check form. Wait for that to clear. Usually takes like 10, 15 minutes. It could take days. Then once you take the gun, you can put it in your holster, in your waistband, or in your coat, or whatever you got, and you can walk out. But a lot of states don't have that. And even
Yeah.
states that are actually kind of
California.
okay, like Texas.
Not good.
I think Texas recently passed constitutional carry, but for a while you could
Yes.
take test.
Yeah.
You had to do a course on a handgun training course. Maryland's the same way. For a lot of
for
people,
concealed
it's not so
weapons.
easy to do. And so the areas where you'd think you would need the weapon, high crime urban areas, are the hardest places to get weapons.
Yep.
And not only that, in places like Chicago, where after it was
I just said, then businesses also. Businesses, if you're more in a liberal area, they'll just say you can't bring your gun in. And, that's their right under the Constitution. It's unconstitutional for you to say in a state you can't do it, but in business, it's their property. They can do what they want. So, yeah, these people that are like going in and robbing like Macy's or whatever, right? The Macy's is most likely saying you can't bring a gun in here. So it's like they kind of do it to themselves too.
what was the ruling in 2008? I keep forgetting the name.
Not Bruin. Heller?
Heller. Yeah,
DC
DC versus Heller. After that, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, Chicago can't stop you from having a handgun, but no building will let you in if
Yeah,
you
it's
do.
just saying that. Yeah.
But the more importantly, why is
I
it
should be on this
that these criminals
podcast.
don't fear anybody might be armed? Because if you defend yourself, you go to jail. If you try to defend others, you go to jail. Look at what was the guy's name? Penny in New York.
Yep.
There's a guy in a train threatening to kill everyone on the train. So him and two other guys subdue him. They charged him
They charged
with
him.
with manslaughter, second-degree manslaughter. Then you got the guy in Austin who is driving Uber, and a far-left extremist walks up with a rifle at low ready and aims it. He shoots, going to jail. He got
Going to
sentenced.
jail. Yes.
That was Perry, I think.
Yeah, and a lot
Perry
of
and Penny. Is
a lot of anarchists have a problem with it because the dude with the AK was an anarchist, but like they both had guns, so he just lost a gunfight.
Dude, you can't be part of a mob
Yeah, you can't.
and walk up to a guy in his vehicle
Yeah.
with a weapon at low ready with you holding it up. You just can't do that, man.
If you're
Hands off the weapon. Thanks for watching this clip from
Yeah.
Tim.
Exactly. Hands off the weapon. Otherwise, you're getting killed. Yeah, this is just crazy. James O'Keefe's getting investigated. Donald Trump's getting investigated. They're using the law so much against everybody. It really is just like if you, what's legal and what isn't is just up to the people that enforce it. So that's how it goes. It's crazy. Even if it's legal, what they do, if you get a jury and a lot of these judges, they'll tell the juries that it doesn't matter. They'll be like, oh yeah, they'll lie. They'll be like, well, if you think it should have been illegal, what case was that? I don't remember. I can't remember. But they were like, oh, but I know it's not illegal. But they told the jury, if you think it should be illegal though, then we could. Oh yeah, it was Irwin Schiff. It was like a tax thing, and he told the jury, it's just like, yeah, no, technically he's right, but if you think it should be illegal, then it's illegal. And he died in prison, working on his appeal. It's from skin cancer, and they want to give him treatment. Very, very messed up. If you've ever heard of Peter Schiff, it was his dad, Irwin Schiff. He ran for ran for the presidency for the Libertarian Party in 2000. Crazy, crazy, crazy story. But yeah, so judges would just go lie and just get the juries to get the decision that they want, and yeah, they'll just do the same, with the James O'Keefe thing. Here we are, Trump. It's like it's wild. But in voting for the right DA is extremely important. Really, local politics in general for that type of stuff, very important. And I think people are really starting to wake up to that. So that's pretty awesome. It's refreshing. I think the way that they're using the law to go after people, hopefully it's the peak, and it does seem like it might be like that. Like people are voting for Republican more and more. People are abandoning the left. People are trying to be more lawful. They're sick of their stores getting shut down in California because there's so much looting that they can't afford to keep them open. So yeah, I think the pendulum is really swinging the other way. But for right now, yeah, it's a really stressful time and hard time for the country. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe for daily news updates, smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and share your thoughts on the story in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.